Most people believe that to be free, you just need to earn more money. This idea seems logical, right? A higher salary should mean more freedom. But what if I told you that this very belief is what keeps millions of people trapped? Imagine two individuals. Let's call them Alex and Ben. They both graduate from the same university, with the same degree, and start working at the same time. They're equally smart, equally dedicated, and put in the same long hours every week. Fast forward 10 years. Alex feels constantly stressed. He's earning a good salary, maybe even a great one, but he's always on edge. He worries about losing his job, about the next performance review, about pleasing his boss. He feels like he's running on a treadmill that's getting faster and faster. If he stops running, even for a moment, he'll fall off. He's busy, but he feels stuck. Ben, on the other hand, seems to have more control over his life each year. He's less stressed, has more free time, and his financial situation seems to improve almost on its own. He still works, but his work feels different. It's less about survival and more about growth. So, what's the difference? Is Ben just luckier? Did he stumble upon some secret that Alex missed? The answer is no. It's not luck, and it's not even about who worked harder. They both worked hard. The fundamental difference between their lives boils down to one powerful concept: ownership. This single factor, ownership, is what determines who is a slave to time and who makes time their greatest ally. In this video, we're going to dive deep into why ownership changes everything. We'll explore why putting in more effort alone will never be enough to achieve true freedom, and how our economic system is designed to quietly reward those who own, not just those who work. If you've ever felt like you're doing all the right things, working hard, saving a little but still not getting ahead, this video is for you. It will explain the invisible force that might be holding you back. Let's start by defining what we mean by ownership. When most people hear this word, they might think of owning a house or a car. And yes, those are forms of ownership, but they're not what we're focusing on today. Those are typically liabilities dressed up as assets. Your house costs you money in mortgage, taxes, and repairs. Your car costs you money in insurance, gas, and maintenance. The type of ownership we're talking about is the ownership of assets. Assets are things that put money into your pocket, even when you're not actively working. Think about owning a piece of a business, whether it's through stocks or starting your own company. Think about owning real estate that generates rental income. Think about owning intellectual property, like a book, a course, or a patent that pays you royalties. These are assets that work for you. Now let's go back to Alex. Alex's entire financial life is built on his labor. He trades his time and skills for a paycheck. His income is directly tied to the hours he puts in. If he gets sick, goes on vacation, or loses his job, his income stops. He owns his labor, but his labor is finite. There are only 24 hours in a day. He is the engine of his financial life. If the engine stops, everything stops. This creates a constant, underlying pressure. He has to keep performing, keep showing up, keep proving his worth, because his livelihood depends on it. Ben, however, understood this early on. While he also started by trading his time for money, he didn't stop there. From the very beginning, he used a portion of his income not just to live, but to acquire assets. Maybe he started small. He bought a few shares of a solid company. He saved up and bought a small rental property with a partner. He spent his weekends building a small online business that generated a little extra income. Initially, the income from these assets was tiny. It was probably just a few $100s a month. It was nothing compared to his salary. Many of his friends, like Alex, probably thought he was wasting his time and money. They were using their extra cash to buy nicer cars or go on more lavish vacations. They were enjoying the fruits of their labor immediately. But Ben was playing a different game. He wasn't playing the game of earn and spend. He was playing the game of build and own. He understood a crucial principle. Income from labor is linear, but income from assets can be exponential. Here's why effort alone is never enough. Alex can get a promotion. He can get a 10% raise. That's great. But his income is still capped by his position and the number of hours he can work. To double his income, he'd have to find a job that pays twice as much, which is incredibly difficult. He's climbing a ladder, but the ladder is leaning against someone else's building. He doesn't own the building. Ben, on the other hand, is building his own structure, that small rental property he bought. After a few years, the rent goes up. The property value increases. He can then use the equity from that property to buy another one. His stocks? If he invested wisely in good companies, they grow in value and pay dividends. Those dividends can be reinvested to buy more stocks, which then generate even more dividends. This is the power of compounding. It's a force of nature. Albert Einstein supposedly called it the eighth wonder of the world. He who understands it earns it, he who doesn't pays it. Alex is paying it. Every time he buys a product from a publicly traded company, a tiny fraction of that money goes to the owners of that company, people like Ben. Every time he pays his rent, that money goes into the pocket of a property owner. He is constantly funding the assets of others. Ben, by becoming an owner, has positioned himself on the receiving end of this flow of money. This isn't a moral judgment. It's just an explanation of how the system works. The system is designed to reward capital. Capital is just another word for owned assets that can be put to work. Labor is essential, but in our economic structure, capital is what generates wealth over the long term. A worker can create a certain amount of value in an hour. But a piece of capital, a factory, a software program, a real estate portfolio can create value 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, without getting tired or asking for a raise. This is why you see stories of founders who sell their companies for billions of dollars. Did they work a billion times harder than the average employee? Of course not. They created something of value, and more importantly, they owned it. The value they captured wasn't just for their time. It was for the asset they created and owned. So how does this shift happen? How do you go from being an Alex to being a Ben? It starts with a mindset shift. You have to stop seeing your job as just a source of income for your expenses. You must start seeing your job as a funding source for your investments. Your paycheck is the seed corn. Right now, you might be eating all your seed corn. The goal is to start planting some of it. This doesn't mean you have to live on ramen noodles and never have fun. It's about being intentional. It's about automating your savings and investments, even if you start small. Set up an automatic transfer from your checking account to an investment account every single payday. Even if it's just $50 or $100. The amount is less important at the start than the habit. You are training yourself to pay yourself first, your future, asset-owning self. Next, you need to educate yourself. You don't need to become a Wall Street guru. But you do need to understand the basics of investing in stocks, real estate, or building a small business. There are thousands of free resources online, from YouTube channels to blogs and podcasts, that can teach you these fundamentals. Spend 1 hour a week learning about assets, the same way you'd spend an hour at the gym. It's an investment in your financial fitness. Then you need to start. The biggest mistake people make is waiting. They wait until they have enough money. They wait until they know everything. They wait for the perfect time. But perfection is the enemy of progress. Ben didn't wait. He started with what he had from where he was. He made mistakes. He probably bought a stock that went down. Maybe his first business idea failed. But he learned from those mistakes and kept going. Ownership is a journey, not a destination. Over time, something magical begins to happen. As your asset base grows, you start to feel a change. The constant pressure Alex feels begins to lessen. You have a second source of income, then a third. You know that if you lost your job tomorrow, it would be a setback, but not a catastrophe. You have a cushion. This financial cushion gives you something invaluable: options. You have the option to say no to a project you don't believe in. You have the option to take a lower-paying job that's more fulfilling. You have the option to take a few months off to travel or spend time with family. You have the option to negotiate for better terms at your current job, because you're negotiating from a position of strength, not desperation. This is what true freedom looks like. It's not about having $1 billion. It's about having control over your time and your choices. Ownership reclaims your time. When your assets are generating enough income to cover your basic living expenses, you have reached a milestone often called financial independence. At this point, you are no longer forced to trade your time for money to survive. You can still work, but you work because you want to, not because you have to. Your time becomes your own again. You can spend it on your passions, your family, your health, or building even greater things. The path of ownership isn't a get-rich-quick scheme. It requires discipline, patience, and a long-term perspective. It's about making a series of smart choices day after day, year after year. It's about choosing to build something for your future self instead of just satisfying your present self. Look around you. The world is divided into two groups: owners and renters. This doesn't just apply to housing. You can rent your time to an employer, or you can own the system that generates income. The difference is everything. It's the difference between feeling perpetually stuck and feeling increasingly free. It's the difference between Alex and Ben. So I ask you, which path are you on? Are you building someone else's asset, or are you building your own? The good news is, it's never too late to change course. You can start today. Start by changing your mindset. See your job as a tool. Educate yourself. Start small, but start now. Because ownership isn't just about money, it's about owning your life. Thanks so much for watching. If this video resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe for more content that helps you build a life of freedom and purpose. Let me know in the comments what your first step towards ownership will be. See you in the next one.